Welcome to another episode of Into the Pot, the show where we review different pieces of media, what they meant to us, and how they've added flavor to the stew of our lives. Today, we're talking about Hollow Knight. As always, we'll start with the good, then the bad, and finish off with the themes and details that resonated with us. Beware, there will be spoilers ahead. Before we start off the good, I'm joined today by an amazing creator, Wilson108, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi there, I am Wilson, also known as Wilson108.
And I am Wilson's girlfriend, Ellie, featured in all of his My Girlfriend Versus videos together.
Yeah, thank you so much, you two, for joining me on this little podcast. So let's go ahead and just start off with the good. I know you two have been playing Hollow Knight for quite some time now. I believe the first time you released the My Girlfriend Versus Hollow Knight was about 8 months ago. So let's go ahead and just talk about what the good is with it. So Wilson, we'll start off with you. What are some things about Hollow Knight that you really loved?
That's a great question. I was replaying some of it today to kind of refresh myself and refamiliarize myself. And I think the first component that strikes me as positive is just the feel of the gameplay, the movement of the game, the mechanics of running around the world, jumping, fighting with enemies, dashing, all the various mobility methods that you acquire. It just feels so good to play, and I feel like there's so much to the aesthetic and the world of Hollow Knight that gets discussed so often, and I'm sure we will discuss it, but when you boil it down to the mechanics and the core of how it feels to play, that so often for me determines whether or not I'm able to stick with the game or not, and other elements of the game can falter if that core gameplay is as engaging as it is in Hollow Knight. So for me, and I don't know that I would have said that had I not just played it today, but the thing that has struck me the most is just it is such a satisfying game to play.
That's true. That's a great point. One of the things that I notice, many from your videos too, is that Hollow Knight is one of those games that is so simple, that is so easier to play, because I know when I showed my wife Batman Arkham Asylum, that was a game she really struggled with because she was moving the camera like every which way. She couldn't move the left stick and the right stick at the same time. But since it's a 2D scrolling game, Hollow Knight is a very simpler game to play. But I totally understand what you mean, because for me, the gameplay is actually really, really fluid. So much so that I actually, when I first played the game back in like 2020, I had beaten the game to just the first ending. And what ended up happening was like, I really wasn't into it. And playing it again for my recent video that I put out, the beginning part was so hard to get through, because when you get to that point where you get these abilities, the power-ups with the hook claw when you're jumping off the walls and stuff, everything in the beginning feels so hard to get through, because I know how good the movement is later in the game, and I know how like the dash and everything feels so fluid and so smooth that it gets me like, oh man, I just want to get to that point again where I can like fully control the character, because it's so fun to play, especially with all the abilities. And now, Ellie, with you, I know you haven't finished the game, but at the moment, maybe you're like, let's say 30% with the game, 40%, who knows? I don't know exactly if you saw the percentages on your profile, but what do you like about the game?
I think agree with what you were saying, and that's funny that you just mentioned the like feeling you need full control of the character, because it was funny to like watch you play from the beginning after getting to where I was at. I was just so appalled at the things you can't do at the beginning. I'd gotten so used to them. Like, I don't even know how I got through this place without having this ability. There are so many things that I can do now that would have made that easier. But I think the environment overall for me is what really sticks out. I think it feels so cozy and approachable that even when it's challenging, I want to go back into that world. I don't want to leave it. So it makes me feel motivated to fight a boss 25 times in a row in one sitting, because it's just a really good feeling world to sit in and be in. So I think after playing Dark Souls and some games where it was a bleak environment to be in, Hollow Knight was really nice and refreshing, because it challenged me a lot and was really hard and I got really frustrated, but the world itself always felt really cozy and comfortable to come back to, and felt like a very approachable, cute game. I wanted a stuffed animal of the night, like very cute and cozy. And I appreciate that about a game, because some worlds in a game can just feel so bleak or dark and overwhelming and hard to sit in for hours for me. Like I want to break from it. And I don't feel like I felt that kind of burnout with Hollow Knight at all.
That's interesting. So now I recently released a video on Hollow Knight and as an analysis in regards to lust and it being a horror game. I understand it's not necessarily a horror game, but there are scary elements about it. So you saying cozy game is also, it gives me like thoughts because I know one thing that I do love a lot about it is the coloring. They're so vibrant in terms of locations, like City of Tears, very blue. Green, green space? What is it called? Green path?
Green Path, I
Green
think.
path, yes. What's a green space? But green path is so green, right? And I think that's one of my favorite things about Hollow Knight is the command of its color is so vibrant. But I've never really thought of it as cozy. Why would you say, like, have you played other games that are cozy that you would sort of feel that same way about? Or is Hollow Knight a very particular case that you would say, oh, it's cozy because of this?
I think it feels very uniquely cozy. Like Animal Crossing, I'm playing a lot of right now, and that's a very obvious cozy game. Nothing bad happens. So it probably does feel like a funny word to describe Hollow Knight because it's a very dark story overall. And I know the environment is dark and what's happened to this world is dark. But I think just the level of challenging that it felt to me working through something like that, I felt more motivated to come back when the world felt so, I don't even know how to explain it. Even like a dark area with solemn music, it just felt so good. Like just to be in that world felt really great, even if it is dark. And this is a horrible thing. There's like an infection in this place. Like it's not cozy like Animal Crossing by any means, but I just think there's something about it that feels so unique to the game. And I think that's probably the appeal to the super fans across the world with this game is it does feel very one of a kind, and I don't think that I have felt that. I've never felt a game like that that's that level of challenging and is dark on the surface. It's a dark story. Also feel that kind of cozy to me, and like I want to come back to it. I've not experienced that yet, so it's a different kind of cozy, and maybe it just felt cozy in comparison to what I had been playing. So I was like, wow, this is great. This guy's so cute, and the world's so pretty. But I think it just feels very uniquely comfortable and cozy, like it's its own genre of cozy, almost like cozy horror in a way. And I love horror, so maybe someone else would not find that as cozy as I would. But yeah, I think that there's so many things about it that I just think it's masterful how unique it is. I've not ever experienced anything like that, even in my limited knowledge, but that seems to be the consensus, that it just has these beautiful uniquenesses.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I would say that, like, for me, I am not too into horror, at least with movies. Video games is a whole different realm that I'm fascinated by horror games and their stories. But one thing, like, I did want to mention, like, you mentioned the music. And I would say, like, I think the music is so well done. And, like, just, like, how masterful this game is. Because back when I played it in 2020, I was, like, waiting to play it for a while. And then, pandemic and everything. And I decided to play it. And I'm a person who doesn't like hard games. So Hollow Knight was always the type of game I don't want to play this because I only have limited time. I don't like playing the same boss 50 times and then realizing like on the 51st that then I can finally beat it because I'll feel bad about all the rest of the time that I didn't do it. But now coming back to the game, I think one thing that you like mentioned on just like how masterfully it's crafted really shows me like I feel like I was missing out because I wasn't invested enough. And writing this video essay was like the weirdest thing because I came to this going like, maybe Hollow Knight is a good game to talk about. And leaving it, I am now waiting for Silksong because previously I was like, oh, look at those jokesters over there, like being so excited for the sequel and stuff. Like, oh, it's never coming out. Ha ha ha, that's funny. And now I'm like, oh crap, I really want like another one of this because it's just so well done. And the more like you go into it, and same with like the later game, like the way you play and like the movement and everything else, like it just gets better and better the more time you commit to it. And when I played it the first time, I was trying to rush through and just get to the ending because, again, in the past, for many games, I have a huge backlog, ginormous. So it's like, I just want to get to the next one, to the next one. So I would beat the game and I'd be like, that's it. I don't really want this. And then I would just move on. But now I'm like really diving into it, and I can understand what you mean, Ellie, of just like wanting to come back to the world and just like be in this sort of cozy environment, because it is really inviting and it's really interesting to just hang out in this world, because I think the world is like super neat, especially once you actually go into the lore, which I could not understand the first time I played it, and second time I played it, I also did not understand because I had to read the Wikipedia page because there's details everywhere, and I'm like, what? That was that? Like I did not even know. And so that's, really cool. But that's what I really love about the game. Is there anything else that you two love about the game or really liked about it?
It's a good question. I mean, the world really struck me as well. I think that a huge tenet for me anytime I play a game is the environmental variety and the breadth of spaces that you explore, be it 2D, 3D, whatever the genre is. I mean, I just like to have a sense of progression. And so, you mentioned a couple of the areas. There are just so many of them that all, for the most part, feel very distinct from one another. They all have typically their own accompanying track. So you have this different auditory atmosphere that you associate with that particular area. And there's just something about the composition of a Metroidvania that has this world that feels like this anthill where you have all these different tunnels and pathways that, connect to one another in ways that you can't even see initially, that I find very compelling in a way that maybe an open world game doesn't quite capture in the same sense. So just the progression of the world in how you interact with it. It's such a treat to get to the next place. I feel like it's intrinsically rewarding just to find the next area, and the name pops up on the screen for the first time, and you're like, wow, this is so different from where I just was. I have no idea what kind of enemies are going to inhabit this space. I don't know what ability I'm going to get here. I don't know what the rigor will be like relative to the last environment. So I just feel like there's a great mechanical progression with the various abilities and so many different side items or hidden collectibles to find, and that's of course very appealing. But there's just this intangible, uh, reward in finding the next thing. It's rare to play a game, I think, that has such a compelling world that you're that invested in seeing what the next place is and how many environments is this game going to have, and Hollow Knight is one of those games where I just found myself. I mean, I can really relate to you a lot in that when I played it for the first time, I fell off of it. I did not finish it. I stopped. And then it was only through a circumstance in which I had nothing else to play and I was at someone else's apartment that I just gave it another shot. And then it got its hooks into me. And once I fell into that rhythm, I found myself in such a steady cadence of just playing further and further. And from there, I beat it very quickly. But the world itself is just, I mean, I'm sure, many have spoken to its quality, but there's something very alluring to that again, I think is often impossible to capture for game developers.
Yeah, it's like a one of a kind, really. It's incredible how well they made it. Are there a favorite character that you guys had from the game? Favorite character, and then we'll talk about favorite location. Because recently playing it, I have some notes, but let's hear your thoughts.
I feel like I have favorite enemies more than anything.
Ooh.
I don't think I have their names memorized quite well, but I really liked the mushroom guys that when you get close to them, you just start wildly like running and hop up. And I liked those little slug guys. Was that City of Tears or above it?
The ones that would run and wave
before
their
the
arms.
Soul Master fight.
Yeah. Oh, I know
Those
what you're
little
talking
slug
about.
things.
Yeah.
I like
those
them. The enemies are so fun and so weird and different that I loved them a lot. I think I felt bad because I didn't get the full lore of Zote, and I read a lot of comments about Zote, and I think I let Zote die. So I don't know. I don't know. I feel like he's a fan favorite character, but now I'm intrigued by him, and I don't know. But I like the grub are great too. I just love all those little side tiny organisms that are in this world. I was so fascinated by it. They were so fun. But I want to know more about Hornet, obviously, as well, because Silksong coming out. I feel like I need to
Don't we
I
all?
gotta know exactly. Do you have favorites?
Well, it's interesting. I think on a larger scale, the game just has a knack for making these really endearing characters that inhabit some random room that you could very easily miss, that you speak to in that context and then never again. And, you know, many of whom I can't even remember the name of, and yet I can picture them in my mind. The game just has such a skill with creating these oddball, little weird one offs. I forget the name, but there's that one character that pops up out of the ground that you initially thought was an enemy, so you were running away from them. But they just had this little sound effect when they would arise, and there's just there's a very quirky quality to so many of these NPCs that
Mhm.
it's not that I have many that were particular standouts, but just the collective of this community I found to be consistently charming.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a great note, and I totally understand what you mean because I think like for me, I also killed Zote by accident. I didn't realize
I'm
exactly how to
fine.
save him, but I loved like the little details, and I also feel like because I did not really invest time in the past, but now like I watched like little YouTube shorts, and they're like, "Did you know this happened?" and stuff like that. I'm like, wow, this is actually so cute and so endearing. One of them being like the nail like sharpener, the one who upgrades your weapon, and
Mm-hmm.
like that he was in a relationship with I think one of the person who teaches you like the charge attack and whatnot. And by the end of the game, if you do all your nail upgrades, like if you have met the two characters, you will see them together again. And I'm like,
Oh, interesting.
that is so cute. I had no idea. Or if you see the nail like I don't even know his name, but the nail sharpener, he's like at the very end, if you don't meet the other character or if you just see him right when he's finished with all your upgrades, I think he says something along the lines like my mission is done. I'm done with this life. And you could just choose to kill him.
Wow.
And
Wow.
Wow.
it's like you could just whack him with the nail and then story's over. But if you didn't do that, and this is like not even like something that's super big in the game, I think you get an achievement for it. But if you reunite them, it's like, wow, like the one character has a paintbrush and then the nail sharpener is like posing like Titanic and stuff and they're painting. And I'm like, this is just so cute. Where like I wasn't even now I understand it's a cozy game, you know?
Exactly.
But I think my favorite character recently, it's very funny because I think it's the character you're mentioning that pops out of the ground. I think the character's name is Cloth, if I'm
Yeah,
Yes,
that
it
sounds.
is
Yeah,
cloth.
yeah,
okay. And this is a big spoiler. I don't know if you are okay with the spoiler, but both times with this character, something happens. Are you okay with the spoiler?
Spoil.
yeah.
Spoil
Spoil
away.
away.
Okay. It's a big moment. It shocked me both times. Literally, the second time I played the game, I was like so shocked and I was like, oh crap, this is exactly how I felt the first time. And that is where I think, because you have the Mantis Lords and there's one called the Traitor Lord as a boss, and Cloth comes and she's like with her giant hammer, like helping you with the fight. Not that great. But at the very end, the Traitor Lord stabs Cloth and
Mm.
Cloth dies. But as she goes out, she smacks Traitor Lord and takes Traitor Lord out too. And I was like, both times I'm just like, oh, let me freaking another boss. Let me just do this. And all of a sudden she dies. And I'm like, what? Now I feel really bad, And then I go like, how can I save Cloth on Google and stuff like that. But I think it's just that like just as you said, Wilson, just like those minor things about these characters, they're all so uniquely done. They all have these really cute voice lines and different like quirks about them that like don't seem like a lot at first. And then all of a sudden you come back and you're like, really? Like that's so neat. One of them too being like the main guy that you see in Dirtmouth, the very top. If the first time you play the game, if you just walk past him without talking, he will literally raise his hand to try to stop you and get your attention. And then you come back and you'll talk to him, and he has a different dialogue that says, "Oh, you almost missed me.
Mm.
Oh,
My name
wow.
is blah blah blah." And I'm like, that's like so cute. That just like feels like it's a really lived, like a breathing world, rather than
Mm-hmm.
just like, oh, an NPC. Let me just talk to you, get your information, get your quest, and then leave.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you
Mhm.
don't stop for him, if you just leave and go to the tunnel, you come back to him and he's like, "Oh, you came back. I thought you were just a ghost. Sometimes you kind of just like hallucinate up here, but it's nice to see you like actually coming back to me." And I'm like, "That's so sweet." I'm like, "What the heck?" So those little moments where it's like, it's also like, it's so personal to however you are playing, because not everyone is going to have these moments. And I don't even know if Cloth always dies, because there's the whole plot of like someone else that they're trying to meet and stuff like that, which, I'm just going to leave it like that. And I don't talk too much about spoilers, but it's like, wow, this is so amazing. And that's what I really like about the game. It also makes me feel bad because I have a friend named Josh, and he loved Hollow Knight. I think he played it for like thousand or maybe like 1,000 hours or something. He loved the game so much that I started playing, and then he would go to me and be like, "Papa nada," and I'd be like, "What? Like I don't understand." And he was like, "You don't know? Like you were not invested in this game as much as I am," and I didn't like the game, so I was like, "It sounds familiar. I don't know what you're talking about." And it's like, but now I'm like, oh, of course, it's Iselda in the map room selling all the stuff and whatnot. And I'm like, man, I feel like I was kind of missing out. But now I'm like, I'm too invested in this game now. But another thing is, what about favorite locations? Any location that really stood out to you that was like, oh, this is like one of my favorite parts of the game?
That's a good question. I think the City of Tears for me is probably the one that sticks with me the most. I mean, I love the music there, and just it's an interesting game in that everything, I suppose, technically is underground, but that area more than any other feels as if it were above on the surface. It's such an interesting juxtaposition to see this. There's precipitation, I think, so it's like, it's very contradictory to what one would expect to be possible underneath the surface of a world. And there is something cozy about that. I mean, to invoke that word again, I like those types of settings, and it feels very populated. It's all enemies, and yet there's almost this communal vibe to that place, with the large tower structure that exists there as well, that I guess kind of transitions into its own area as well. But just the introductory elevator ride down to seeing that for the first time, and the enemies that you encounter and the way that area is composed. It's just a really cool place. And like before we had started to dig into this game through the lens of Ellie playing it, it had been years since I had played Hollow Knight, and that was always the imagery that I would have in my mind and if I would picture that game in my mind's eye, that initial shot of arriving in the City of Tears is the single imagery that has stuck with me. So I think that's the standout for me.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, like, a lot of people say that. They say like if you don't get a City of Tears, like you haven't really played the game yet, because that's the part where that hooks a lot of people. But what were you saying, Ellie?
I was thinking about, what's the area with the mantis lords called?
It's off of the fungal wastes, so
yeah,
it kind of
but it has like its own little
like
mantis
Village.
Yeah, it has its own little area down there. I hated that area so much because of the backtracking to get to the boss. And then once I beat the mantis lords, it was the most beautiful experience of like, they all bow to me now.
Oh yes.
And
yes.
I don't have to fight enemies anymore. So then I was like, I have such a newfound appreciation for this area. I love it now. I don't have to go through all these enemies. So that was such a cool environment shift for me, that I think that's such a cool thing to add to the game, that like, oh, now that I've done this mantis lord fight, this area is so much cozier and fun now, and I can actually enjoy it and not despise the path I'm taking, and I can find new things in it. I think what
I was gonna say, that really speaks to the detail that you just mentioned, like having the mantises and all of the accompanying inhabitants of that region now bow to you is a detail that you had missed initially, and you were attacking them and killing them despite their passivity.
You were like, wait.
And I had forgotten that they did that too, but it's little moments like that build the world so much. And I'd forgotten that, and I was so struck by that. That's just so many cool little details like that. But that's a great example.
Yeah, I think it has a lot of ways that it changes the environment you're in. I didn't feel very burnt out of one place because something would change about it or I'd unlock something new. I do remember feeling really excited to get to Green Path because just that color shift, like you were saying. Yeah. I think I said out loud in the video, like, oh, I love green. It's not blue, purple anymore. I love having this green, bright energy in here. And I think that I see, like, when I am picturing the map in my head and I'm picturing going through the game, I just see colors. Like, I see what each vibe feels like color-wise. And I think that's such a cool detail. Like I see pink in that last area I was in. It
Mhm.
was the waterways, I guess.
Mhm.
That like everything just feels assigned a color, and that's what sticks out the most to me about the environments. But yeah, I think Green Path and the fungal waste Mantis Lord area was the coolest for me.
Yeah, those are great things. And I know the art direction is just like what makes it so amazing. And I would also have to agree with you, Wilson. City of Tears, favorite location. I also like
Mhm.
the lore idea of like it hasn't always been raining because it like they don't call it City of Tears when they were first building it or something like that. So like the idea like oh everything had like this is a kingdom long ruined and that's why it's always crying. And I was like I think the first time I ever got to that I was like whoa that's there's something deeper to this game. So that's I love City of Tears and I love the music that plays. I love the music in the game a lot more, especially as I'm sure you know, adding background music to videos. It's like, well, let me try to find something not copyright, and then I listen to some songs. I'm like, okay, it has to fit the theme and whatever. And then listening to the whole soundtrack, I'm like, these songs are really good. Just like
Mm.
on their own, they're just like really good. So I think masterpiece of a game. I mean, like I'm impressed about how well it's done. But we could talk about, you know, the good all the time. Let's go ahead and move on to the bad parts, something that you didn't like about the game. And this time, let's start out with Ellie. Is there something that you didn't like about the game?
I think for me, it's backtracking from benches to bosses. I think that really started to drive me insane, and maybe is why all of the Mantis knights, whatever they were, I think knights are what they're called, all of the Mantises bowing down to me was such a game changer because I was so miserable from that backtrack to the bench I was at to go do that boss fight. And I think more accessible benches would have been preferable for me. Or I know this is just the nature of this genre in the game, but I hate backtracking to a boss in general, so I kind of get really excited when I play a game that just starts you right back at the boss. I think I feel like motivated to lock in, or I'm going to do this better this time. I know what I messed up on that last attempt, and that backtracking. I would just, from being burnt out and annoyed, die doing the backtracking, getting hit by enemies before I even got to the boss. So that's probably my number one complaint, is just that the long treks, like when I had to pogo on top of those mushrooms to even get back there, just really complicated platforming things that really felt like just a lot of hurdles and obstacles to go through just to get back to one area. I think nature of the game, but also some of those benches felt really far away and frustrated me.
That's a great point. I would 100% agree with you. I hate the difficulty, especially when it's like super hard and then just having to walk back. One of the worst feelings. It's like the walk of shame, you know, walk of defeat all the way back and just to do it again. But what about you, Wilson? Is there something that you didn't like from the game?
Well, I mean, I echo her sentiment in that regard. I think a lot of that can be frustrating and feels kind of needless in that you've proven that you can reach a boss. I don't know why you're necessarily required to retread that ground, but to provide a different point or take, I would not say that this is bad, but I am torn on the manner in which all of the world's lore and information is presented to the player,
Hmm.
because you know I've come away from this game and really now playing it with Ellie and making these videos about it, I've become way more exposed to the game and the community, and people have, obviously been really impassioned to talk about it, and I've realized how little I knew about it, and so I realize now so much of what Hollow Knight has within its world is delivered in very subtle ways in these tomes that you may find in some side room that provides this literature about an event that's taken place or a character. There's so much of that, and the game, in the vein of a lot of modern From Software titles, is a lot more subdued in conveying its narrative to you. And it's kind of this approach of it's there if you want it, and if you don't want to engage with it, you don't have to. And I don't think that that's a bad way to approach it or the wrong way to approach it, but I can't help but feel kind of bummed that I came away from the game not even really realizing how much there was there that I didn't partake in. And that speaks to me perhaps even more than it does to the game. I can relate to you. I have a really big backlog of games, and I am just get one game done and move on to the next. And
Yeah.
I really didn't grasp how much I missed of Hollow Knight, and in terms of its narrative, but also in terms of just gameplay and environments and areas and bosses that I didn't encounter. So, again, I by no means am asserting that it's a flaw in the game's design, but I tend to be someone who likes an overt narrative that is presented to me in pretty definitive ways. And I mean, there are a couple of instances in the game where there's a cutscene or a cinematic, and I love stuff like that. I love having this moment to engage with this piece of narrative that I cannot miss, and it turns into a passive piece of entertainment, and then it ends, and I go back to the game. And so, again, I think if I were someone who didn't play as many games as I do, I would appreciate and be able to bask in the world of Hollow Knight a lot more than I did. But because I didn't, I felt like I came away missing a lot of the experience. And even though I did finish Hollow Knight, I kind of feel like I didn't finish Hollow Knight. And that is something that kind of always leaves me feeling unfulfilled and as if I need to go back at some point to make sure that I find everything that I missed the first time.
Yeah, that's a great point. I have not really considered that. Because I was also in the same boat. I left feeling like I didn't really finish it. The first ending that I got to, which is the quickest ending to get to, is like one of the worst just endings overall. Because I was like, that's it? Like, what did that mean? Like, why did his eyes go orange and then black? I was like, what? And then I was like, okay, I guess I won't play this anymore. But no, I get what you're saying. And I would say like one of the games that may this is like sort of my gripe with the game is the big thing about accessibility. So I'm a huge proponent of accessibility. I think these stories should be for everyone, or everyone should be able to engage with these stories. That's why, even though people will say, oh, you just got to get good or whatever the heck like that, I will always champion that these games need to be easier, or at least have the option to make you have more health, make you have, the bosses are not bad or something like that, because I feel like it does a huge disservice, not to, your own self-worth or anything else like that, but just to the idea that people won't be able to experience your stuff. Right. And so that's one of the things, like, I want art to be accessible for everyone. And this game, especially, like, I love being able to talk about it and all that stuff. But I'll meet people who are like, it's just too hard. I didn't want to play it. And yeah, it breaks my heart. Like, I would love for you to just have it easier if you wanted to. You don't have to. Or the option to make it harder if you'd like that kind of thing too, like accessibility. But in that vein too, like, I think you've played a little bit about the game Outer Wilds, right? Where if you explore a location, Outer Wilds is my favorite game, actually. One of the reasons why I started my video essay channel. But when you explore a location, it tells you, like, on the computer, it tells you like the information, and like it connects dots, different places. I think that would be something that would help a lot with players understanding sort of the story. I think sort of that log and that information, because again, I will agree with you. I don't know most of the things without going out of my way to watch someone else explain it or to read it somewhere else. So I think having like an in-game sort of diary or information or anything else like that, similar to The Last of Us 2, where, when Ellie's writing in her journal and stuff, right? At the end of the day, and, you don't have to look at it, but then you do, and you see the drawings of all the characters and Ellie just drawing, But I think that's so cute, and that's such a good way to interact with the world. And also, like, if you leave and you come back, you're like, oh, that's where I am. I totally forgot. And so that's something that I would say is my biggest gripe with the game. Accessibility, because same with you, Ellie, not Last of Us Ellie, but you, Ellie. It was awful to backtrack. And then there's an item that you get later that lets you put a teleport spot that you can teleport back to it. But in exchange, you have to use the currency, which is known as essence. And in order to get the complete ending, you need a larger amount of essence, like 2,400. But that would be always the worst, because I would be like, I could use this teleport thing, but now I feel bad because I'm using something that is not easy to get. And so that's something that really bummed me out, because it's like, oh my God, this is such a cool item. I'm going to use this all the time. And then it's like, no, don't use it all the time. Otherwise, you can't get the ending. I'm like, you could get the ending, but then it would just take longer because now you're using this stuff. So I think that for me, that's my biggest gripe with Hollow Knight. I know I'm hoping Silksong is a little bit more accessible. Another game that I absolutely loved is called Another Crab's Treasure. I don't know if you two have heard of this game. Have you both played it or just seen it?
I haven't played it yet, but I intend to. It's in the queue.
I've seen him look at it. That's how I know what it is.
It is Dark Souls essentially, but crabs, right? Very funny developer, and really good messaging too. I love the themes of it, but their accessibility was so great in the game. I loved it so much. You can change the damage, you can change the health of enemies, and at the very end, if you are just frustrated with the game, you can just give your main character a gun, and it will just kill everything in one shot, even bosses. And I'm
Wow.
like, that's so funny. That is not something that everyone will need to use, but that's just so funny and so nice to have that available in the game. So shout out Another Crab's Treasure. I love that game. Okay. But is there anything else that you didn't like? Anything else before we hop into those themes?
Not much. I mean, what you say resonates a lot. I completely agree. And I think that video games are so interesting in that they're the only medium that has a barrier to entry to experience them, other than literacy, I suppose. But, you know, if you want to watch a movie, all you have to do is watch the movie. And you may not enjoy it, and it may be boring, and you may have to force yourself to do it. But all you have to do is sit there. And with a game like Hollow Knight, you can't experience it if you can't execute on what's asked of you. And that's the case for any game, but Hollow Knight can be very rigorous. And I completely agree that providing the more flexibility that you can provide to the player, the more players will finish your game. And so I don't know why that wouldn't be a benchmark for every developer. And I think it's becoming increasingly so. Why wouldn't you want as many people to finish your game as possible? Barring some auteur, I suppose, that seeks to alienate and find a very small minority that really connects with something, of course. But I agree. I think there were times where Ellie, you know, I think overall always enjoyed the game, but found herself occasionally frustrated to a degree where she just didn't want to play anymore and needed to take a break, or she would have been miserable. And while there is an appeal to overcoming adversity and triumphing over something very difficult, I think that there is a balance there, and that challenge isn't binary. There are different kinds of challenges. So maybe a really engaging boss fight that's really difficult is great, and that's really fun. But to spend 30 minutes retraversing to the boss every time you die, cumulatively, that's not fun at all. And that's a type of challenge that wore Ellie out. Whereas I think she was always fine with fighting a boss fight as many times as she needed to. So I think that I agree. I hope Silksong finds more nuance in how it presents challenge. And, you know, my ideal world is one in which games provide, you know, variable difficulties for various components, be it combat or navigation or puzzles, and provides as much leeway as it can to let the player dictate the level of difficulty that they want. And I think that Hollow Knight, as you mentioned, doesn't really provide much of anything in that regard. And I think that's a point of improvement that they have for the next game.
Yeah, hope they do, because I will tell you, I struggled a lot. Even getting footage for my latest video, I was like, I just want to get to the next part. I know it's past this boss. Just hurry this up. And it would be like 30 times before I could even freaking get to the next part. Another game too. I don't know if you heard of this game called Lies of P. Have you heard of that one?
Yes, I just played it. I just finished it recently.
Oh, fantastic game. I could not beat it. I was at the very end of the boss. I was also playing stupidly off of Xbox Game Pass for cloud streaming. I didn't install it and play on my computer. So input had a delay, and the blocking was awful. So I was really bad at the game. But they just implemented difficulty. And I'm like, this is so nice. Like, I don't have to worry about doing the same boss 50 times. If I'm just frustrated, let me just lower the difficulty and just try it again. And then now, let's do that, right? So, again,
dude, I have to say, I played Lies of P when I started it. They had not introduced the difficulty settings, and they added them like a week into my playing of the game, which was purely coincidental. And so I had just finished this really difficult boss, and it drove me crazy. And I remember Ellie was on her way over here as I was fighting it, and I beat it like 10 minutes before she got here. And I was like, I'm so glad that I beat that before you got here, because I would have been so unpleasant to be around had I not. And I was about to quit the game, and I reloaded it up the next night or the night after that, and there were suddenly difficulty options, and I was like, "What? Did I unlock this because I beat that boss?" I was so confused. I googled it, realized that they had added them in, but I mean, I was teetering on being done with it, and I know for a fact if they had not patched those in, I would have quit the game. But I bumped it down one difficulty level. I played through all the way to the final boss, and that would have driven me crazy. And I bumped it down to the easiest, and then I finished it. And there is no question that I would have quit that game had they not enabled that. And since they did, in the middle of me playing it, no less, it gave me the edge that I needed, and I was able to get through it. So that's funny that you've been playing that too, because that's been on a top of mind for me lately.
Yeah, no, I loved the game. I loved sort of the
I did too.
atmosphere and everything about it. And I was just like, man, this needs to be easier. And then boom, they made it easier. Wow. What
Yeah.
a concept. What a concept. Okay, but let's go ahead and move on to some of those themes and details that resonated with us and really spoke to us about the game. And I will go ahead and start for this one because one of the things that I love about Hollow Knight in particular has really shown me from your channel, actually, from watching your videos. It's one of the themes that really spoke to me is the idea that, I don't know, have you either heard of the 10,000 hour rule?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's obviously that idea that if you spend 10,000 hours in something, you will become a master of it. Obviously, it's not, hard and set in stone, like you don't have to spend 10,000 hours. But I love your channel, especially the idea that, Ellie's playing these games for the first time and watching that sort of interaction with the game. Also, you, Wilson, like doing the analysis of that. That's really showed me like, wow, as much as we say like accessibility and like, making things easier and stuff like that, it's that idea that like if you spend enough time with these things, especially like Hollow Knight, because I didn't like it at first, I wasn't good at it at first, but if you spend enough time with something, you can be really great in it. And I realized that about like everything. Ever since I started writing video essays, I think my first ones were not that great. But now I see like, oh, I'm doing a lot better writing. And, and I'm reading a lot more and doing a lot of these other things. So that's something that really spoke to me about the details about Hollow Knight and just these types of games in general, like very difficult. And especially your channel. Because like I do see that. And now you're doing like Zelda Ocarina of Time, another game that I love, absolutely loved, but it's those things like seeing your progress with Zelda and all these things, and some of these bosses are hard and everything else like that, navigating the camera and everything else like that. And I think gaming, as you said, is something that has a barrier of entry, but it's not something that's impossible to get into. And it's not something that, prevents anyone from sort of getting into that. And I love the idea of accessibility and love that idea of having people just stay in these worlds longer because they'll love it a lot more. And that's sort of that theme of Hollow Knight that I really love because like this is a decayed, world that has died out for so long and all this stuff. And you're like an archaeologist. You're digging things up. Everything is underground. You're like learning about these things. And the more you spend there in this sort of like cozy environment, just hanging out, seeing all these rock formations, seeing all these things, like it teaches you so much. And I love that idea that even though we don't have unlimited time in the world, and I would love to spend so much time with everything, that's why I need some things to be easier, but just that spending that time will make you a better person in whatever field that you want to. And talent is not innate. It does come from a lot of hard work. That's something that I really like. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted you two on this podcast, because it's the idea that like you two have inspired me in many different ways. And I love like the work that you do, the consistency that you've been putting out, like the way that you interact with your community. It's been like a really wonderful thing to see. And obviously like I'm trying to get better every day at creating content and everything that I do. So seeing you guys like also getting better and better. I love like, the very first Hollow Knight video, you guys, Ellie wasn't even on camera. She didn't really speak for that video. And now you're doing like the cutaways, like The Office with the talking heads. And then, Ellie's just talking. And I'm like, this is so fun. And it just like, it evolved to a point where things are getting so much better, more interactive, and just more fun. And I think that's true about everything. But so for themes, what are some themes that you two have like really resonated with, or like has Hollow Knight spoke to you in some certain way? This can also be from your, the video series that you did, like what changed. I know that it's one of like your biggest series at the time. So Like, what have you learned from Hollow Knight? It doesn't have to be specifically about the game, but just your experience with it.
You wanna start with
I'll
that?
go first. I love everything you said because that's so true that it just takes committing a bunch of time to something to get better, and it feels so unattainable at first. I think it's really funny. Like, the flip side of that is I've played guitar since I was like 13, and I just taught myself, and I really wanted to learn to play, and so I've just put probably 10,000 hours into that. But he's just not put the amount of hours. He has such a good natural ability, but it's funny to watch your language around that of like, oh, will I ever learn how to do this? And I'm like, you just have to do it every day. But it's a funny flip because I say the exact same things at the beginning of a game. I'm like, oh, I'm never going to get good at this. Like, I'm so bad at this. And it's really cool to have the videos and have a game like this where I can go back and see just how different it was when I first started and see that progression. But I think overall, a theme for me, maybe my play, the video, and the game itself, just feels like resilience is a huge theme. I think there are so many boss fights where I just don't even feel accomplished after. I feel just relieved to be done. And I think every boss fight in Hollow Knight, I felt really accomplished. I got to go to a cool area, or I got an ability, and I felt like, wow, I can't believe I did that. That took forever. I didn't think I was going to. I just feel so accomplished right now. And I think that kind of resilience narrative of being able to push through something really stuck out to me, because not all games are like that. Sometimes I'm just still angry after I've beaten the boss, and I'm like, well, that was dumb, and I'm not even happy I did it. I'm just glad it's over. So I love that aspect of it, and just there feels like there's a lot of benchmarks where you maybe don't even realize it in the moment, where you can just tangibly see how much better you're getting. And it's really cool to have the series for me to look back at that, because I think this game specifically, being able to dedicate so much time to one game because the videos did so well, was really cool for my gaming experience in general for the rest of my life, because I think that just fundamentally changed how I approach games, because I got to see how much better I could get at just one over a certain amount of time. So it's been a perfect game for it. I'm so glad it's the one that did well, because I think it taught me a lot. And yeah, it's just really cool to see your own progression in that way. And I think games are such a cool way to do that. Like, you don't have a ton of things in life where you can really exactly see how much better you've gotten, and you maybe take for granted how hard it was for you at the beginning. And I think games are a cool medium where you can really feel and see that.
Well said. Well
Thank
said.
you.
Well said. That's super
I agree. I'm kind of piggybacking off of what she said, but for me, what's been so striking about Hollow Knight is, I mean, I've become a lot more connected with this game and literate in this game from what we've done with it than I ever was when I played it myself. I mean, I truly didn't grasp the notion of the passion that the game had until we really got into her experiencing the game. But, I think what struck me so much about this one is, from Ellie's perspective, resiliency that she could feel internally. But I sort of was able to witness that on the other side of it as someone who felt confidently that she could do everything that she was attempting to do in the game. And the first couple of games that we had her play on the channel were Dark Souls and Bloodborne, which are very difficult games. They're very overwhelming. They're also 3D games. And, and with those initial videos, I was really opaque, and I didn't provide Ellie with any help at all, because that was sort of the premise of the video, was how does this game communicate with a player who doesn't know about the game and also isn't getting any other assistance at all. And then Hollow Knight was our third episode, and she encountered the False Knight. I think his name is, in the latter stretch of her playtime. And as she was doing it, I could see that she was making small incremental improvements, and I kind of just said, well, why don't I just provide some pointers? And it was the first time that I really provided any instruction as to what she was doing and how maybe she could do it better. And so we got into this rhythm of me saying, okay, here's how to approach this attack, and examine the moveset from this boss. What do you see? List out every attack that it's doing, or movement that it's doing, and register with yourself what that is and what that looks like and how he's telegraphing those things. And over the span of about an hour or so, we just kept doing that, and Ellie would just continue to absorb what I said, apply it to her attempt, and do a little bit better, and then she finally got it. And for me, that was my favorite moment that we'd had up to that point, was her defeating this boss. And that experience repeated itself multiple times over the course of the series, typically with the boss fights, where she would have, the first Hornet fight was really difficult, or the Mantis Lords, or the Soul Master. So many different boss fights that initially Ellie was resigned to failure with regard to. She just, felt very strongly that she wasn't going to be able to do it. And each time she slowly learned the patterns and the move set, and she would slowly do better. And she finished them all. She beat every boss that she attempted. She got every single one done. And so to be able to witness that progression more so than any other game that we've had her play and that we've played together was really, really cool. And I think Hollow Knight does such a great job, particularly with its boss fights, of providing you with this, this fixed arena in which you have to outwit this other opponent. And there was something about it being on a 2D plane that made it very clear that when she no longer had to worry about camera,
Yeah.
manipulation, she could just focus on the enemy and herself, and seeing that slow progression. And every time that Ellie finished a boss fight, there was typically massive growth between her previous best attempt and the victory.
Mhm.
Like she may have gotten roughly halfway through the fight on her best attempt, and then when she finally beat it, she jumped all the way to completion in that one fell swoop. And I would bet money that if she were to go back and do any of those bosses again right after that, she would have been able to beat it again and again and again.
Yeah.
And there's something about overcoming that. It's in the same way that human beings, with say an Olympic sprinting record, you can't beat a record until it's set, and then it's like, well, okay, that's humanly possible. It was possible to do that, so that means I can do it even faster. Once you beat something and overcome something in a game, it becomes infinitely more manageable, and you think, why did I struggle so much, and why did I get so frustrated? Clearly I was going to be able to do it. And there's just something about her experience with Hollow Knight that laid that so bare in such a clear way. And again, there were bosses that she did dozens of times, but she was always ready to go back and do it, and she continued to improve. And it wasn't a linear progression. Sometimes she would go down and then back up, but there was just such a harmony between the player and the experience in Hollow Knight. And while I do think there's room to improve with regard to how it provides flexibility to the player and how they're going to do that, there is such a special feeling when you finally overcome this challenge that seemed so formidable as to not be completable initially. So it was just a lot of, I feel like Hollow Knight for me is through the lens of Ellie and her experiences and our journey with it. But there's just that classic video game triumph that is sometimes lost in a lot of modern titles that is so
Yeah.
acutely present in Hollow Knight.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I want to piggyback off a couple of things that you mentioned. One, I love the fact that you started giving hints and tips. I feel like that is something that is like necessary for everyone. My next video essay that I'm trying to write, I'm going to talk a little bit about the idea of independence and how that can't necessarily always be a good thing, right? Because as people, like our biggest strength is that we communicate with each other, we help each other out. And I know back then, even though like I was a kid, I was playing all these games and stuff like that, and they were hard for me. I would say, oh, like my sister or like my cousin, like, hey, can you help me beat this level? And like they would beat it like, oh, this is easy, or something like that. Or I would go online and search up like tutorials and stuff. And that's what everyone does. Like there's so many YouTube videos and out there like tips and tricks to help you beat this, because not everyone's going to be able to interact with the game the same way or understand the same mechanics, right? Because culturally we'll think about things in a different way. So I love that idea that you started giving Ellie some hints and tips, because like us in general, even though we struggle with it, like, and I do too, and like reaching out to you two was like, oh, this is a big moment, but it's like that idea, like we don't exist in a vacuum, like we're here together, we're all able to help each other out when we need to. So I think that's a really good thing that you mentioned. And then Ellie, like what you mentioned too about having a sort of digital archive of like seeing your progress grow, I think that's really cool too. I have been doing YouTube for like over 10 years. Previously, I was doing like a Let's Play channel, like funny moments and stuff like that. And I look back to those videos and I'm like, wow, this was like me like as a kid, making these videos and stuff. And so it's really weird and cool to see how much I've grown from those. But it's also very linked to the other thing that I want to talk about with Hollow Knight, and it's like that idea of death, right? Which, a little bit dark topic, for our cozy game, Hollow Knight. But it's the idea like, oh, we got to this point, like we can see like all this stuff that happened in the past as we play Hollow Knight. We are like archaeologists. We're going with talking. We're learning that this kingdom fell. Why did it fall? Why are these bugs like infected? Like what exactly happened of the past? And the more that you dig, the more time that you spend with it, you're really learning about like the history, and you're seeing this world, but like you're seeing like the past, what it used to be, and now what it is. And I think that's such a really cool idea, because in my latest video essay, I talk a lot about like it has the fear of death, where you're surrounded by things being dead all the time. Like there's many ghosts that you interact with, the kingdom's gone, all this stuff is just completely, gone, but still there's so much to it. It leaves such a memory. It leaves such a like a world that you can still explore, see how it grows and see how it like changes throughout. And I think, with your videos and also with my videos, like having that sort of digital archive, again, unless the whole YouTube collapses and all of our videos are gone because, we didn't save it on a backup drive or something. But it's that idea like, oh, like this is our history. This is like our world. And I'll think about that too with like my videos or like my time of my life that I play or watch a movie or watch a TV show or stuff. And it's so interesting to me to think about it, because one thing that I champion with my channel so much is that the idea like who we are today is greatly, greatly influenced by the media we've consumed, whether video games, movies, all that stuff, because I think people have this thing about like nature versus nurture. And it's like, oh, is it innate that you are that way, or is it nurture? Like, did you become this way? I think one thing we forget to talk about is media, because we are the byproducts of everything that society like we consume. Like for example, I watched Superman recently, and that instilled me with hope. It's that it changes my whole perception of the world. It changes like how I view things. And that's what I want to do with my videos. I want to change the world in that way. But it's that idea, like with Hollow Knight, it has reframed a lot that I think about in terms of like death and the fear of death, and sort of that idea of like, being hollow, but we're not necessarily hollow. Like we have so much to us. We have our past, our history, the world, the society that we live in, the games that we play. So I think that's a theme that really speaks to me about Hollow Knight and what you guys are doing with your channel. It's still crazy to me that it's been like 8 months since you guys started your Hollow Knight series, because I recently was like, wow, I first saw your channel with the It's Okay to Play Video Games video, and I love that video, and I was like, dang, like that's a really good, simple video and really speaks to me a lot. And then to see like your growth from there, and I'm like, it's been like a year, like where is time going? And it's so crazy to me, because it's like now we're able to talk to each other, and you just passed 10,000 subscribers, so I want to say congratulations too.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And so it's like it's this huge feeling of like, whoa, where has time gone? Where were we even like last year? Where was this kingdom, throughout the thing? And so I think that's something that really speaks to me about Hollow Knight, and just that idea of like history. So I look at your channel, and I do like combine it with the idea of Hollow Knight too so much, because I know like what 10 years from now, who knows, a million subscribers, you'd be playing the next Zelda, and this will be like, oh, Ellie beats the next Zelda in 5 minutes or something like that. And so I think like there's so much that's going to happen, but it's so crazy to think about like where we've come. And so that's something that I really like about Hollow Knight, and the biggest reason why I wanted you to here, because it just, your journey and everything, it means a lot to me. It inspires me a lot. And I think it's just a fun way to relive the past.
Well, thank you, man. Thank you for saying that. And it's so cool to hear you speak of things in that framework. I think about that a lot too. And sometimes I'll go back and look at an old video or something, and reflect on my voice or my the structure and how it was composed, and just think about how, or I just really feel confused at what I was doing, or why what I was thinking at that point in time. But tying it into Hollow Knight, it's really, I mean, it's this world that feels as if everything occurred previously, and you're sort of this wanderer that's observing what's come, or what's come before. There's a really cool little indie horror game called Home that I like, and it's very brief, but you're playing as this guy who's traveling through all these environments, and this forest and this, library, I think. And every time you go somewhere, there's this macabre imagery, and someone might be dead, but no one's ever there. You never interact with another character. Everything that you're experiencing has already taken place, and you're sort of this custodian coming through and trying to parse out what's taken place and why it's taken place. And Hollow Knight reminds me of that, in that it's obviously much more kinetic and there's much more activity still going on, but it feels in a sense dead. This world is a husk of its former self, and you are now left to your own devices in the midst of all this chaos. But it's also very quiet. There's just such a, I mean, again, it goes back to the word that Ellie used, cozy. It's this weird juxtaposition with this orchestral score and these really bombastic fights and enemies and sound effects, but it all feels so intimate and very just mellow and subdued, and it's a very interesting juxtaposition. But yeah, it is thinking about it in the context of history, and you're tying it in with the sort of a digital log that you and I are constructing. It's I don't know, it's just fascinating to think about. That's a theme that resonated with me as well. So that's really cool to hear you discuss that.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you for sharing that. I saw your home video actually on your channel long time ago. I don't remember it at all.
My second video, yeah.
Second video. Okay. Yeah. No, I love the videos that you make, especially the video essays. I will always tune in because, you've got great takes, and, I think
Thanks, man.
you have a great voice too. I gotta put it out there. A lot of people, I will listen to their video essay and I'll be like, like, Wilson, wow, he's got a really good voice. It's like such a good narration voice. So
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that.
yeah. So I love your videos and love your content. Ellie, any last thoughts about themes or anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I love everything you've said, and I think the way I was a comm major, film minor-esque
okay.
kind of person, so I really love movies and I really love themes and beating a dead horse, overanalyzing something. So I think the way you weave in the theme of death, and this, even your video about the rehearsal and this lust concept, the 7 deadly sins concept is just magnificent, by the way. That is just, everything you say is so cool. That's just a brilliant idea. So I love the idea of looking at our channel like that and connecting it kind of to Hollow Knight and these themes. I just think is so cool, because I don't believe in author intent. I believe in, we make it what it is. It's not theirs anymore once we have it, and we get to interpret it as we want. I just think it's so cool, everyone's experiences with it and the things you can compare it to and different metaphors. It feels like it connects to all of us in such different ways and is so personal yet universal at the same time. So I just think that's so cool, and it's really cool. What a media in general, just really cool to be able to analyze and
Really cool.
connect to our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say I was not a comm major. I was a chemistry major. So it's very, very different.
Wow.
Very, very different. I would not recommend it. I did not like chemistry. But yeah, no, thank you what you said about my videos. I know this lust video was, again, it was 8 months in the making. I had the concept, I have an idea. I was like, how do I make it something meaningful? And I see what you two are doing with your channel, how you're doing a series. I am all over the place. I'm very scatterbrained. I will talk about whatever means a lot to me, because that's my biggest thing. I don't necessarily want to make videos where I'm just summarizing a game. I want to actually say something. So I will talk about abuse and Silent Hill and stuff like that. And sometimes I'll say things and, I'll get a really good discussion that people are talking about things or seeing things in a different way. And I think challenging people's beliefs and ideas is the number one most important thing, also coolest thing. But no, this lust concept is I'm trying to build a series of these 7 deadly sins, but also trying to say something meaningful. And also knowing that I've fragmented my audience tremendously, because many people came for, I did a video on Ted Lasso, and they're like, oh my God, I love Ted Lasso. And then they will not watch any of the video game stuff. And then the rehearsal, people watch rehearsal, I don't like video games. I like the show. I won't watch anything else. I'm like, well, what did I do? I kind of screwed it there. So at least I'm trying to build a series. A lot of people came from my Mario video too, which was I chronicled losing my best friend. And the next video I'm trying to do is the next in that sort of series where I talk about a video game in relation to life experiences. And it's like, that's not the seven deadly sins. So I appreciate your comments. And I do think it's like, it's cool ideas, but it's also like, wow, I at a certain point, it's like, no one knows what to expect from my channel because it's like I'm all over the place. I didn't know I was going to do Rick and Morty. I didn't know that I was going to do Expedition 33, but I just did because I was like, oh, I want to say something. It means a lot to me. So thank you for what you mentioned about that. I thought it was a really good concept, and I did get a lot of people clicking it because they're like, what? Hollow Knight Lust? That's so weird. So yeah, I hope I did the games justice. That's my biggest thing. All right, so any last bit of things before we give our final scores to what we think Hollow Knight is?
I mean, it's been very enlightening to discuss it here. I feel like my appreciation of the game has only grown in the last hour.
I know. And now Silksong feels even farther away, and I'm like, God.
It does. We're an hour closer than we were before, at the very least.
Yeah, but an hour closer to what? 2020.
True.
2030.
True.
Who knows? But so, any last thoughts before final scores?
No, I think I'm ready to.
I know. I want to hear everyone else's score first. It might influence
You can go
mine.
last.
I want to go last.
All right. I guess I will go first. When I first played the game, I didn't like it. All that stuff. This is a very good game. It is very well constructed. It does lack some accessibility features, but I think for what it is, what it's been created, I think personally, it's a 10 out of 10. I think that it's a masterpiece. It is very hard to improve on it. I think the only improvements would be something accessibility wise, but again, I don't think that's something that like hinders it. Again, I will struggle with it. I will never beat some certain things about the game, but I will never get the achievement to beat the game in 5 hours. It's like, nah, that's never going to happen. Why was this an achievement? I hate time-based achievements, but that is something that like I will never do, but I still appreciate the game so much, and I think it's an absolute masterpiece.
Okay, I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10, and I'm gonna give it that because it's obviously objectively or subjectively, I suppose, a very high quality experience, and it's a game. Sometimes I play a game and I come away from it feeling at a loss for what to criticize. I don't really have tangible qualms with it. I mean, we've discussed them to some degree here, but they're not ones that even really detract from the overall experience. But I'm going to leave that extra point because for me, not that a 10 out of 10 denotes perfection, obviously. You can give something a 10 out of 10 and it still isn't perfect in whatever that would mean. But I feel like for me, the games that are transcendent to that level of perfection adjacent or sort of flawless is such a powerful nostalgia and emotional tether to that game, be it the era, likely the era of my life in which it was played. So an Ocarina of Time, to use that, to invoke that game again, that is a 10 out of 10 for me, even though I don't think it's perfect. The impact that that game had on me and the resonance that I feel even just loading up the title screen is transcendent and is something that I can't really put into words. Hollow Knight, after all this time, hasn't ascended into that type of realm for me, and I don't know that it will. I think it just takes a unique mix, and there are games that I've played of more recency that do, so it's not just to say something that I would have played as a kid. There's something about Hollow Knight that doesn't quite reach that point for me, but it's a game that's difficult to criticize. It's a game that does a lot of things right. It's a game that I'm very grateful for in that it's been really impactful for us and for the channel. So I have a very special relationship with Hollow Knight, but I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, that's a great point. I do like what you said about like things not needing to be perfect to be 10 out of 10s. I think my rating scale, because I rate actually everything like on my little spreadsheet and whatnot, everything that I watch and stuff. I do something very different that I think a lot of people don't do. And I mark everything as a 10 out of 10 first because I compare it to itself. I don't compare it to other things. I say everything is perfect as it is, unless it starts like certain things need to be fixed, where I think a lot of people find themselves starting at 0 and then going up based on how much they like it. I think I'm a little bit too much of an optimist in that sense. I think everything is perfect until I find things that I don't like about it. So I like
that outlook a lot.
Yeah, it makes me feel great because like even this recent Jurassic World movie, I was like, I'm not a big fan of Jurassic World. I'm not gonna tell any spoilers, but a lot of people said it was awful, just like trash. And I was like, this is such dumb fun. I loved it. 8 out of 10. You know, because
Yeah.
it was fun. But
I
what
love
about
that. You're like perfect, innocent until proven guilty almost, which is like the way we should operate. So I love
Yeah.
that for rating something too. That's really great.
That's a good way to put it.
I don't want to copy you.
Copy
But I
away,
do think
copy
I'm
away.
also going to say 9 out of 10 because I think my breadth of gaming experience is smaller than both of you. So I want to leave room for my 10 out of 10s. But I do feel like everything you were saying about it, I do wonder like if I play it again in 10 years, if I'll be like, oh, this is one of my favorite games of my life that I've ever played. Like it's going to take me right back to when we were playing it. And then I would probably see it as a 10 out of 10 just because it would feel nostalgic at that point. So I'm excited to see what it feels like then, because probably my games that were my favorite when I was little, I don't know if when I was playing them, I was really like, this is the best thing ever. And now I look back and I'm like, Simpsons Hit and Run is one of the best things that ever happened to me. Like that's one of the best games of all time, but I don't know if I thought about that in the moment. So I like to leave room, but I do think gameplay-wise, recently, especially playing older games, I'm complaining so much about mechanics or being like, this is dumb that it would be this way. I need it to be this other way. Like, why would they design it like this? And I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think I said that a lot with Hollow Knight. I think my frustration was just purely, this is hard. I didn't find anything about it besides accessibility.
And pogoing.
And pogoing. Besides those things, I think they could have taught me how to pogo a little better. I will say that. Maybe that's why it's a 9 out of 10. But I don't think I was ever complaining about the game design at all. It was naturally frustrating, which to me feels like a perfect, great game if I can't find any way to blame the game or think like, oh, this is just dumb and needs to be different. This is impossible. My not completed maybe 40% intake of that at least. We'll see what happens as I get further in. But I think 9 out of 10 as well.
It's strong score. I mean, it's a great game. It's a great game. We all know it's a great game and everyone loves it. Me, like 5 years ago, I would probably give it like a 5 out of 10 because I did not like it. But now, like, look how things have changed. So there you have it. We gave our thoughts and opinions about what Hollow Knight meant to us. And now we want to hear what you all think about it down in the comments. Do you agree or disagree with our opinions about it and the general consensus? Let us know, and if you enjoyed this video, consider dropping a like and subscribing for more. As always, check the links in the description for my main video essay channel, as well as where you can find Wilson and Ellie on their channel, and my Patreon to support the channel and recommend media for me to review next. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.